Hey, all right. Ready for the next episode of Heal Thyself. Thank you for joining. Thank you for rating, reviewing, subscribing. Thank you for supporting. I see every single one of those mentions, those reposts, all the love. Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day and spreading the show, because the show is really catching fire. And again, I'm very grateful for all of that. Today's show, we have such a good guest. I jump right to the guest. I'm just going to give you the name, Dr. Carrie Jones. I can't wait for her to go over hormones. She is the hormone guru in the United States. She is on fire with her knowledge, and she's going to drop every single one of those gems for us. Before that, I'm going to be talking some important knowledge bomb stuff. And overall, the show is going to be as good as ever. Anyway, let's get right to the knowledge bomb. All right, today's knowledge bomb, from popular inquiries over and over, I was getting, please talk about breast implants, Dr. G. Okay, let's talk about breast implants. Breast augmentation, it's popular, it's growing. It's actually been growing a lot since the 2000s. Most frequently performed cosmetic procedure in the United States. Last year, there were over 313,000 procedures done, according to the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. 48% increase over 2000s, which was really surprising when I saw that statistic. But a quarter of those are from reconstructive surgeries. Different types of implants with different characters. There's a saline one, which are sort of like the old school ones. They're sterile water in an implant, and they are at risk for popping. That's the big thing, that they can pop, but the water's reabsorbed in the body. There's structured saline ones, which are similar, but they have a structure within them. Silicone implants, which are the silicone gel, which is said to be inert. They feel more like breast tissue. They can also leak silicone as well. And then there's a gummy bear ones, which have the consistency of the silicone one, but it's thicker than the more traditional, older silicone implant. And they're more firmer and have a more natural feel. And then there's the natural shape ones, which are the smooth and the round ones. Those are, I think newer ones, but they give the breast more of a full and a smooth texture. The textured implants, this is the one that has become under a lot of scrutiny, particularly because within those textured implants, they can develop scar tissue where the implant is fixed. And that scar tissue, that area, is most at risk for a very specific, rare, but very specific type of lymphoma. And that's one of the huge issues now that is coming about breast implants, and which is why I'm talking about it. So breast implant associated lymphoma, it's BIALCL. It's not breast cancer. Okay, not breast cancer, even though it's in the breast, not breast cancer. It's an immunological cancer. It's lymphoma, particularly non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And most are found in the area of the scar tissue or the fluid near the implant. Okay, but it also can be systemic throughout the body. The risk is low, but the cancer can be very aggressive. So the FDA estimates that it could be 1 in 3,000 folks, or 1 in 3,817 to be specific, folks, or females, or males, and or 1 in 30,000. So the first signs that you get usually are swelling near the implant, but it's really something that has been blowing up right now in the news, because the issue is that this show is about informed consent, right? Like, the education is put forth so you all can have informed consent. Well, the FDA is actually doing something really good for once. The FDA is putting out urgent warnings that these manufacturers of breast implants have a black box warning for informed consent, talking about these risks, particularly the risk for rare but very aggressive type of cancer. The textured implant has the highest risk. Back in September, the FDA actually requested that the Allergan pharmaceutical recall their BioCell textured implants due to the risk for this cancer. And you might remember, if you had breast implants, this recall come forth, and you might have had a scare. If you didn't hear of this recall, I would recommend that you call your surgeon or the group where you got your implant done and find out if it fell under this company's textured implants. All right, so the risks for breast implants are the same. And there's the anesthesia risk. There's always a short and long-term risk. You have to be clear on what the risks are, so make sure that your practitioner is very much so clear and giving you informed consent about it. Bleeding, bruising, pain, obviously, but some folks have persistent pain, persistent numbness. There's a risk for scarring, fluid accumulation, changes in the nipple sensation. The implants can rupture. It's not a lifetime thing. You can have something called capsular contracture, where the scar tissue forms and it creates a really tight capsule around the breast implant, and it can change the appearance. This should all be put forth by the whole group, or the surgeon, or the nurse practitioner, whoever it is, so you have your informed consent before you make the decision. Now, there will be more informed consent because hopefully the FDA's black box warning comes forth on all breast implants. So you have to know, it's not made for a lifetime. There's changes in the hormone in the body that can affect the shape and the size of the breast implant. Know that there is lack of informed consent on breast implants. The other day, a family member sent me the article, actually it was this week, an article by Huffington Post that I looked at, and it had a really nice summary of what's been going on. So this week, the FDA, that's when they started drafting or putting together draft guidance. The draft guidance is basically what their current thinking is on breast implants. And what they were suggesting, again, as I mentioned, was a black box warning. Black box warning is when there's reasonable evidence associated with serious hazards. Usually you see this on drugs. It's the most stringent and serious warning that the FDA puts out. So why? It's to inform people of the possible risk that is connected to breast implants, including, like I said, rare cancers, additional surgeries down the line. Again, they're not made for a lifetime, and I think some people are under the impression that they are, and there's increased risk of complications long-term. So the longer you have them, the more at risk you are for these complications. Remember that. And there's women I know who's had breast implants in high school. So we have to really stay on top of the literature out there, what's in the news about breast implants, because, and I will go into a little bit about breast implant illness a little bit more, but again, the FDA does not agree with the lack of informed consent. And like I said, it's good to see they're doing something right overall. What they are also suggesting is that each patient, before they get an implant, have a patient checklist with all the information about the potential risks. So people can make a proper risk-benefit analysis before choosing to do something this major. So again, informed consent, informed consent, informed consent. So that draft guidance was put together by the FDA as a result of testimony from hundreds and hundreds of women who were talking about their experiences with breast implants and how they suffered and how they've gotten really sick. And there was the whole spectrum of generalized symptoms all the way to the lymphoma. They've also had thousands of complaints from women suffering from breast implant illness. I'm going to go into breast implant illness. But there's a quote in that article by Dr. Oren Lerman. He's a director of aesthetic and reconstructive breast surgery at New York's Lenox Hill Hospital, where I was born. He told USA Today that breast implant illness is a widespread problem, but one that continues to baffle physicians. We absolutely need to learn more information on that. Listen, Dr. Lerman, this is not baffling. It's a foreign substance in the body with foreign materials, and what's happening is you're developing an immunological reaction with low or high grade local or systemic inflammation as a result, and that's manifesting as a multitude of generalized symptoms that seemingly unrelated, and this is what we call breast implant illness. It's not rocket science. It's what happens when you put a foreign substance in the body. Again, not baffling. So according to the FDA, up to 20% of implants, patients who have implants, have them removed within 6 to 10 years because of complications. So breast implant illness, as I mentioned, is not an official diagnosis, not in the medical community. It's not really recognized like that. But it's an illness that women who self-identify with the symptoms and present with a multitude of symptoms, as I mentioned. They could be various, but according to surgery.org, who spoke a little bit about breast implant illness, these symptoms are including, but not limited to, fatigue, chest pain, hair loss, headaches, chills, photosensitivity, chronic pain, rash, body odor, anxiety, brain fog, sleep disturbance, depression, neurological issues, and hormonal issues that they feel are directly connected to the saline or silicone textured or smooth breast implant. This is what is the epitome of what we see in breast implant illness. Someone who comes in and has this rare picture of symptoms, a rare checklist, right? Headache, okay, headache can be 1,000 things. Chills, that could be 900 things, right? Brain fog, anxiety, depression. But what the amazing thing is, and I've seen this in clinical practice, is that the women who have the onset of these symptoms, who are really good historians go back and say, you know what, doc, these symptoms began right when I got my breast implants or shortly thereafter. And if they're a good historian, they start putting together the puzzle. And when they put together the puzzle, it shows me that possibly what we're seeing is this abstract picture of symptoms called breast implant illness. What I've also seen is women who do remove their breast implants have regression of all of their symptoms. I've actually seen a woman remove her breast implants and lose 20 to 30 pounds of straight up inflammation. As I talked about, local and systemic inflammation that Dr. Oren Lerman couldn't put his finger on. This is what I'm trying to get at. So if you do have, if you look back and think about when you got your breast implants, if you got a slew of symptoms coming in slowly or like a tidal wave, then think back, be a historian, start writing stuff out, put together the picture, and then start exploring what your options are. As far as the literature, there's very little that we can hang on to about what breast implant illness is, right? Most of the literature out there actually says, conversely speaking, the breast implants are safe, not harmful, okay? So that's what the medical community goes by. Rightly so, right? This is what the studies say. But here's what I say about studies, right? Studies are a guide, period. They're a guide. They're not Bible. They're not religion. They are a guide because certainly it's never a be-all, end-all. Why? Because human experience is the truth. Human experience is the truth. No study can ever encapsulate the complexity of the human body, the changes moment to moment, the variables, the infinite number of variables that we have that affect our health. So what do I pay closest attention to? Even before the studies, what do I pay closest attention to is what the person is telling me what their experience is. That, my friends, is the most important way to do medicine. Your studies are your guide, your studies are a foundation, but when someone comes up to you and says something that contradicts what you believe is in the study, you better start listening to the person because that person knows their body way more than us practitioners will ever understand. And I want you to remember, when you have a picture this rare or this unusual and you can't put your finger on it, it usually takes years and years and years before any leeway comes in the literature to really have a hold and a grasp on what breast implant illness is. So remember, your symptoms, you taking note on the progression of them, you being an excellent historian about your health before and after breast implants is the best literature that we can use as practitioners. So I want to leave you with a resource, The Naked Truth About Breast Implants, From Harm to Healing. This is by Dr. Susan Kolb. This is a plastic and reconstructive surgeon who is shedding light on breast implants. So a really good resource from a credible author. And then there's healingbreastimplantillness.com. That's for you. If you are going to entertain explant removal, you will be able to find explant surgeons on there who do the proper procedure, right? Because you want to remove the capsule with the breast implant rather than just leaving the capsule in there. The capsule can be the source of inflammation. So make sure if you find someone on there, you have a really in-depth conversation. Do your research, right? This podcast is just a guide as research for you to look further and dig deeper into what the full picture is. But I really hope that if you do have breast implants and any of this resonates with you, now you have some leeway and understanding on where to go, some guidance. So there you go. Look, breast implants, all the information you need. I'll put some links on when the podcast comes out, I'll put some links on the bottom, where to look for more resources. And I really hope that was helpful. So I can't wait. I cannot wait to get Carrie Jones on here. So not another second is wasted. Let's get her on here. Let's talk about hormones. Let's set this podcast on fire. Hey, all right, everyone. Today's special guest I have been waiting for since day one. Finally, she came out from Portland. She is here. She is a naturopathic doctor. She is a hormone savant. She's an international speaker. She's the medical director of Dutch. I can't be more hype. Dr. Carrie Jones, thank you for joining.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. When I knew I was coming to LA, I was like, we have to make this happen.
Yeah.
We have to make this happen.
But how long have I been asking you to come on the show?
Since day one. Since you told me this was going to happen. Since this was inception. You were like, I have a buddy.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one who's excited because, I put you up on Instagram. I said she's going to join the show.
Yeah.
There were so many people who were wanting to come actually see you in person, hanging out in the background and hear you talk because they see what you do, and what you do is incredible.
Thanks.
Yeah, like
Thanks.
You've tapped into an audience of huge part women and men also.
Because hormones affect men. A lot of the stuff I talk about, estrogen detox, cortisol, like men are like, yep, I have that too. I have that issue.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we overlook it as men, right? And we think that women are the ones who are hormonal. Yeah, women have the hormonal acne, but man, for us men, and working oncology, like this is something we look for like early on, preventatively.
Yeah.
Man, so you work for. I want to talk about Dutch first because this is a test that I pretty much do when everyone walks in the door. We want to see. It's like a yearly physical exam for me. You got to do the Dutch part of it.
Yeah. Men and women. Men and women.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I always get is, well, why is it different from the blood test?
Oh, right.
And what do you say to that?
So, well, for one, it's a dried urine test. So Dutch stands for dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And so men and women urinate on these pieces of filter paper 4 times during the day, let them dry, mail them back to the lab. So it's super easy. People who don't like blood draws, it's great. But because it's a urine test, you get all the pathways. So you get your estrogen, but you get where estrogen goes. You get your testosterone, but you get where testosterone goes. You get your cortisol production, cortisone, which is inactive. And so when you get your blood drawn, as a guy, you might get testosterone and it's normal, but you can't figure out why you have prostate issues and why you're having male pattern baldness and why you have acne. Same for girls. You get a testosterone drawn and you're like, but I have all these symptoms. I'm like rageful and I'm losing my hair and I have acne on my jawline. What is going on? I'm like, oh, you go down the pathway that encourages that. So let's work to get you off the pathway. But you're not going to see that in a blood draw. You will see it in a urine test.
Yeah, and I've had patients that go, oh no, I just got my hormone test. It says I'm fine.
Yeah.
And
but they don't feel fine.
Yeah,
they feel terrible.
Yeah, I'm like, but you have cysts in your breast.
Yeah.
There's a reason. Why don't we check?
Yeah.
Because that's not the be all end all.
Right.
And that's the best part of the test. It illustrates those pathways, which are pretty incredible because you see the underlying stuff that's going on, or overactive enzymes, we'll say.
Yeah.
What role does it play in cancer prevention? Like,
huge.
Huge, correct?
Yeah, huge. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into cancer, of course. This is just a part of it. But when we're specifically looking at estrogen and estrogen detoxification, there are 3 levels, I would say, to detoxification. So there's phases, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So in urine testing and Dutch testing, we look at 1 and 2. And so it gives you a pretty big look so that you can lower your risk. And not even just cancer, but everything estrogen related, right? So women who have PMS and heavy periods and, cysts in their breasts, men who are over-converting too much testosterone and estrogen, and then the estrogen can't detoxify out. So they're getting man boobs and they're getting, abdominal fat gain and they've got erectile dysfunction and they're depressed. It's all because they can't clear it out of this estrogen detoxification pathways. It's so important.
Yeah, and again, that you see it illustrated step by step how it's breaking down. And then the best part, I love this part, is the little pie graph next to the estrogen. And then I show the patients, I go, look where you're dominant. And I tend to say like 3 roads and where most of the cars are going down. And some of the roads have like potholes and glass, and then some are a little smoother than the other. But to paint that illustration, to know that like, can we manipulate where that estrogen pathway goes? Do we have the power to do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. People think it's very difficult or it's going to require some big expensive medication, and a lot of lifestyle and supplements, dietary choices can make a huge impact on the road itself and then on which road you're going to choose, which is so nice.
Yeah. And just literally changing your diet or adding in foods, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Or eliminating things like, alcohol, or reducing toxins, toxicants, reading labels. All those things will redirect your road and affect your detox.
So let's go into that. Let's go into some hormone disruptors. What are things that, why are hormones so messed up? I need to know this.
Why are hormones so messed up?
Yeah, why was it like this in the 70s, in the 80s and 90s, or has it really been on the up?
I feel like it's just definitely on the up. And now it could have been as big back then. We just weren't tracking it like we track now. Like the data is now so in our face, we can't ignore it. We have to look at how many women have hormonal issues fertility issues, PMS issues, men with all the hormonal issues, little kids with hormonal issues that should not be having hormonal issues. That just seems to really be so explosive now. And I think a lot of it, unfortunately, has to do with our environment. I just think it's just, it encourages the production, some of the chemicals encourage the production of our own estrogen to be made. Some of them get in the way of our detoxification, and some of them mimic our own hormones. And so even though if your body's like, no, I'm good, I don't need to make any more estradiol today, which is an estrogen, you maybe have been using a lot of plastic, or you've been using skincare or cleaning care that looks like estrogens, and they're like, well, we don't care. We'll bind to the receptor.
Yeah.
We'll turn the receptor on and do all the things you don't like. No problem.
Overstimulation, kind of just pushing that
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
And so, and on this show, I literally talk about environmental stuff all the
I
time
know you do.
because I love it. But so plastics, major, right?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
all should actually start making moves away from plastic water bottles, right, into stainless steel.
Right. We talked about that in the car on the way over.
We talked about it in the car, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, these are...
Even just microwaving in plastic, we think of it as a no-brainer, like don't microwave in plastic and don't heat things up in plastic. Even just, when you go to the coffee shop and you get it to go and they put the plastic container on top and then you sip your hot coffee or your hot tea through it, it's like now you have heat coming through plastic. And that's, when I learned that, when somebody pointed it out to me a couple years ago, I was like, oh, I do that all the time. Here I am, I use a stainless steel water bottle most of the time, and I don't heat in plastic. I have all glass at my house. Totally, when I get to go, I was using the plastic cup, the plastic topper, and now I don't. I just take it off.
We don't think about that.
Yeah.
And I thought I was extra smart a few years ago when I was like obsessed with these matcha lattes in the cafe next door. And I told them not to put the plastic top on, but also the lining of the cup was styrene, phthalates, BPA. So, and it came up. I actually took a test. And
I have one to take. It's sitting in my bathroom.
Yeah,
but I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, that's my yearly test coming up. But I think it's pretty incredible that it's everywhere. But like making informed decisions can be pretty easy. Like, all right, we have these storage containers that we use. They're all plastic. We put some hot pasta in there and put them in the refrigerator. Why not get glass ones?
Right, just start switching.
Yeah, water
They're
bottles.
all missing their lids anyway. So just don't, chuck them,
so
donate them, and just go to glass.
It's so funny you say that because I made like fingerling potatoes yesterday, and I was looking for the lid, and literally it was like a square one, and I was trying to put circle ones, triangle ones, and I was like, where is this lid?
See?
How is it like a sock?
I was just going to say, it's like the sock in the dryer. Yeah.
I don't understand. Who takes what bandit at night?
They go together.
Lids?
They're clearly dating.
Yeah.
And they've run off.
They run off. Yeah. So, okay, all right. And then how about, are there foods that disrupt our hormones too?
Well, so with the foods, a lot of it is what's put on the foods, right? The herbicides, the glyphosate, the sprays, the fungicides that are put on there will absolutely affect, one, how we make estrogen, and then two, how we detoxify estrogen in particular, for sure. So, we just have to be really careful. And we often talk about the environmental working group and what foods you should do organic and what foods are maybe safer. And I'm constantly pointing that out to women. Like, hey, look, I'm so glad you're doing fruits and vegetables. That's amazing. Except you're doing conventional strawberries, like just ridiculously toxic.
Yeah.
Like you're doing conventional blueberries in your smoothie. Why don't we move to organic?
Next step.
Yeah, like yay for fiber and flavonoids and all those things.
Next step.
Like, I don't want you to have all that toxic in there.
How about alcohol? Is it really that bad for hormones?
It is really that bad for hormones. Oh, and that's when everyone tries to negotiate with me. Yeah. Because think about it, when you're trying to detoxify estrogen, it's like going down the road, just like you say, right? Or my analogy is always a clawfoot bathtub, and it has to be clawfoot because
you said
I'm
that
extra.
at AMP, I remember.
Right,
yeah.
I'm
that was
extra.
Really good. You are extra.
So the water coming in your clawfoot bathtub is your phase 1 detox. The drain, the ability to get out of your bathtub, is phase 2. And then the ability to get out of your house through the sewer line, which is your colon, is phase 3. So 1, 2, and 3 have to be totally open. Now, if your water is on full of estrogen and now you add in a whole bunch of alcohol has to go down the same drain. So it's going to compete with the estrogen and oftentimes wins. Estrogen goes back in circulation so alcohol can go through. So what happens is women, men will often have these high estrogen type symptoms because they're drinking a glass of wine every night or, a bourbon on the rocks every night or a couple beers here and there. And often, not even here and there, but pretty often. It's pretty common, and they become hormonally symptomatic.
That's
which
amazing.
Is
yeah.
a problem. And like I was saying, everyone, and I have the occasional drink. I'm not alcohol free, but it's pretty rare, and I'm pretty specific about what I drink or when or what I'm celebrating. But people will negotiate their alcohol with me all the time. People will be like, oh, but I drink tequila because it's less sugar. It doesn't affect my, if I'm the people who are doing continuous glucose monitoring, it doesn't affect that. I'm like, it's still tequila, still mezcal. Like it has to get detoxed. Yeah. Or they'll say, oh, I only do the small batch wine that's, local. That's
biodynamic.
Thank you, biodynamic, and there's sulfate free, and it's all organic and all this stuff. And I'm like, fantastic, highly recommend it. Same here. Still alcohol. Yeah. Like if you have, if you and your girlfriend, boyfriend split a bottle of wine, like you still got to detox it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so true. So kind of like picking and choosing instead of making it a routine.
And justifying like, oh, I have a glass of wine every night. I'll just switch to the biodynamic wine and I'm fine. I'm like, well, you've eliminated a lot of the toxins, which is fantastic, and you've addressed a lot of the sugar issues, which is fantastic, but you still have a detox issue. And if you are hormonally challenged, maybe until we unchallenge you, lay off the alcohol.
Okay, so alcohol-wise, it's not. Is there one in particular, or are they all pretty much still messing up that phase one?
They're all pretty much messing up the phase one.
Yes. Really.
No,
really
there's different. If you were to ask me, like, well, what's the best for blood sugar, right? Like, a lot of people they often go for tequila. If you're asking, well, I like wine. I'm looking like biodynamic, low sulfate, low sugar, organic, not sprayed.
All the other factors.
Right, but that's a different category. If you're asking me what does the liver like best? I'm like, water. It likes water.
Exactly. It doesn't like any of those.
Yes.
It likes water.
Yeah.
So the phase one is the way that the liver is detoxifying.
It's the water coming into your bathtub. So you have 3 options. So you have 2 water, you have 4 water, and you have 16 water. So 2, 4, and 16. Those are essentially your road options in your analogy. 2 is considered the less carcinogenic. It can still be carcinogenic, it's just less so. Your 4 is considered more carcinogenic. It's more likely, if you go down that road a lot, that you can have DNA damage. We don't want DNA damage. 16 is considered proliferative, so it makes things grow. Good for the bones, bad for the boobs, bad for the lining of the uterus. So if somebody has a lot of 16, they're often like, I have full tender breasts at PMS, my periods are heavy, I have a lot of clots. And so we're trying to shift that more to the 2 water. Then once the water is in there, I want your drain open. That's phase 2. And so that's when you goes through something called methylation. Everyone always talks about MTHFR, right? The dreaded MTHFR disease that you're going to die from because they've done their SNP test and they're positive MTHFR. I'm like, okay, you're not going to die.
I have MTHFR.
Right. You're not going to die. It's actually not MTHFR that does play a role. It's actually COMT. COMT is the bigger methyl player when it comes to estrogen detox.
Yeah, and on the Dutch, you'll see the methylation step.
On the Dutch, you see the step. You can see if you're methylating estrogen or not. So that's your drain. And what that does is it takes your 2 and your 4 and neutralizes it. So you switch over into a neutral state. When you're a 2 and a 4 in phase 1, you're what's called a reactive oxygen species. And trust me, when you've got hormonal issues, you don't want reactive, right? You don't want reactive oxygens going around. So you got to neutralize them, and that's phase 2. And then once it's neutral, now it's water soluble, and you can get rid of it.
Now, back to those 3 estrogens, right? The water ones.
Yeah.
Are they all carcinogenic, or is one more carcinogenic?
4, it's called a 4-hydroxy. So 4-hydroxy estrone or 4-hydroxy estradiol, and the abbreviation for hydroxy is OH. So sometimes if people are reading about it, they'll see 4-OH.
Yeah.
That's the more carcinogenic one, because if it continues on, if it can't get neutralized, then the risk for DNA damage goes up quite a bit.
And on that test, you'll see a red chunk for that 4. And
it's
usually,
like a big flag.
It should be below like 13 or something.
Yeah, 11.
11.
Yeah.
I'll see folks 30%.
Yeah.
The minute, that's actually the first thing I go to when I look at the Dutch test. because I work with a lot of breast cancer,
Yeah.
and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's pretty incredible. So then it goes through the drain,
Mm-hmm.
and then that this is phase 2 now. It's coming into, and what happens in phase 2?
So that's the neutralization part.
Okay.
So you go through methyl. So your 2-OH goes through the drain. So basically, it goes from an OH to a methyl, a methoxy, and that means it's neutral. So now you have this like super neutral, water-soluble molecule sitting in the cells, like ready to be excreted, like a good little molecule.
Yeah,
as
not
opposed to in
reacting.
phase 1, which
Yeah.
is reacting all over the place and
Yeah.
causing problems. So that's when we get into phase 2. Now, phase 2. Let me back up. So people often say, well, what can I do to optimize phase 1, right? So remember, though, we teach it as 1, 2, 3, but you treat it as 3, 2, 1. Because I need your sewer line open. I need your gut, your microbiome, your intestines working to get it out.
Sure.
Then I need your drain open, and then I need the right water. Because if I'm just addressing the water, you're still but 2 and 3 are blocked, you're still going to
building
flood,
up,
right?
yeah.
You're still going to flood the bathroom, and that's still a problem. So, but to address phase 1, this is when people often do the brassica family of food: broccoli, cauliflower, broccoli sprouts, kale, things like that, mustard greens. Those are all super helpful for phase 1.
Yeah. So to get it down the drain.
To get the right water into the bathtub in the first place.
To go down to 2.
Those foods help
Yeah.
move it appropriately.
Right.
Especially broccoli sprouts. Broccoli sprouts are one of my favorite. You can grow them yourself. Just make sure, you can buy them, make sure they're organic. But what they do is they really help redirect that 4, which is the worst road to be on. It's the worst water. It's the most carcinogenic, cancer-causing, and it redirects it back so that it can be have the chance to be neutralized.
Yeah.
So people go, really, just broccoli sprouts? I'm like, yeah,
Literally.
throw them on your salad, throw them in your soup, add them to your smoothie.
That's food medicine. I
Yeah.
tell people, like, even if we never do the Dutch test, I say, you have a family history of breast cancer,
Yep.
you got to start
Yep.
getting these guys in here.
Yep. Not even just breast cancer, but anything estrogen
Yeah,
related,
I'm
right?
sorry,
I have
yeah.
severe PMS.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure cancer, don't get me wrong. But
yeah,
I
just
have
my field,
PMS,
but yeah.
I have heavy periods. I have, endometriosis. I have cysts. Men who are like, I've got these man boobs. I'm like, okay, we need to address this.
So then how important is it to be pooping every day?
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important to be pooping. That's your sewer line.
That's a sewer line.
Because think, just like in your house, if you have a blocked sewer line in your house, what happens? It all comes back up your toilet. It all comes back up your sink. It's the same thing. Things will get all backed up. They'll recirculate and cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, that recirculation is the major thing that we want to prevent.
Right.
So if you're constipated,
Which a lot of people are.
It's interesting. I saw a pattern, and when I was in school, I said, all of these girls who are coming in here with hormonal acne on their jaw
Yeah.
can't poop.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is before I even started really going into it. I said, something's going on here.
Yeah.
And then the next class we learned about that. But
Yeah.
but it makes sense when you do the analogy that you were speaking about, right?
Yeah. When your microbiome in your gut isn't healthy, then you have the higher ability to release hormones that were packaged up to be pooped out. So let's pretend you make an estrogen, you go through phase 1, you go through phase 2, now you're getting pushed, like you're done, you're water soluble, it's time to get excreted, thanks estrogen for your job, it's time to move on now. So it goes moved into the colon, and then if you have constipation, and if you have a lot of just general dysbiosis stuff going on down there, then your estrogen that's literally tied in a package with a bow on top gets untied and released and set free. And you just reabsorb it back into your bloodstream. And so now it gets part of the count again that's going around.
So now you're tying in the microbiome.
Right.
The importance of it. Is there a name for that microbiome?
Oh, it's my favorite word in the whole world.
Okay.
It's the estrobolome.
Estroboloma. Yeah.
And in Spanish, it's the estroboloma.
Estroboloma.
See.
Yeah, see. So you're telling me that when your microbiome or your estroboloma
Yes.
is imbalanced, then you have these species that are more readily unpackaging that estrogen and throwing it back into your system.
They make an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And beta-glucuronidase is important. We need it for other healthy things. I don't ever want it zero.
Yeah.
But when it gets out of control, then it will basically open the bow, undo the bow, open the package, and let estrogen fly free. And when it flies free, it gets reabsorbed. instead of getting pooped out.
So then do you recommend a poop test also with the Dutch test?
I
'Cause
do.
that test a bit
I
of
do.
glucagon? Okay.
Especially when people say, I have constipation, I don't go every day, I have a lot of gas and bloating, or one or the other. I just feel like when I eat food, it doesn't digest very well. And they have a lot of hormonal dysfunction. I'm like, okay, it's the first thing we start with. It's the gut. You got to get the sewer line open.
Yeah, and the amazing stuff is the stuff we were talking about are the same stuff that also affects your gut microbiome, right? Those environmental toxins, that really poor quality food. So it all ties together, just like that bow. It all ties together in an amazing way. And okay, so then when we talk about, because not all women are estrogen dominant, what about the women who have really high levels of testosterone? What the heck is going on there?
Yeah, so the big reason for high testosterone, honestly, is high insulin. So women who, if you, women are listening and they're like, I think that's me. I have acne, I have hair growth in places I don't want, I'm losing the hair on my head. It might be PCOS, it might not. It might just be an insulin testosterone thing. It may have nothing to do with PCOS. But insulin will push on the cells in the ovary that makes testosterone. And so now you have all this excess testosterone production. Now you can also make testosterone in the adrenal glands. Women make a significant chunk in the adrenal glands. So you can also have an upregulated stress response, an HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal dysfunction. You're pumping out lots of cortisol and you're pumping out lots of testosterone. And so then now you have all this excess testosterone, and so you're very symptomatic. And then you go down the wrong pathway. You go down what's called the 5-alpha pathway, the 5-alpha reductase pathway. And it's like a perfect storm.
So super stressed, and then when people are stressed, they eat like crap.
Oh, completely.
Cravings,
comfort
sugar
food.
cravings, right? So then you're in this cycle, and your 5-alpha is having a party. Right?
Yeah,
and that's
your face is having a party. The hair growth on your nipples and your belly and your chin are having a party.
Hair loss. So
no, the hair growth you don't want. The hirsutism.
The hair growth,
But you are losing hair in your head.
Losing hair on the head.
Yes.
So folks, men and women who are listening, this is really important, right? Like this is why you need to be evaluated for this. To know.
And there's other triggers. Inflammation is a big one. Having excess adipose tissue already can be a big trigger for that 5-alpha pathway. And so if we can modify their inflammation through diet, lifestyle, exercise, avoidance of toxins, if we can modify their insulin through diet, lifestyle, exercise, sleep, avoidance of toxins, like you can make a huge impact on that. There are supplements that help, but we can absolutely focus on the diet, lifestyle, exercise, sleep part first.
Yeah, literally, I was having a conversation with someone. They were like, it's funny how we're all going back to like just the basics of like lifestyle and diet. All form, like all practices, all fields, like we're all like, oh, well, why don't we talk about sleep this time?
I mean, they won the Nobel Prize a couple, years ago for the circadian rhythm. Huge. Who would have thought circadian rhythm research? We've been saying it forever. As naturopathic doctors. But I know.
That's how
it was good research. I mean, it was,
But all right, so. and then the other part of this test, which is amazing, is the cortisol part that you mentioned. There are so many people who go, hey doc, can I get my cortisol tested? I was like, why don't we just get everything tested, the hormones? But this is is it a urine also, or is it a swab?
You can do either. So cortisol can be tested in saliva. You will get free cortisol. So that's free is what's active and available. That's what binds to receptors and does the things. You can get it in urine. Urine will give you a free, and it will give you production as well. So how much are you producing? And then of that, what's the tiny percent that's free? Because free hormones is a very small percent. Your hormones are like children. They shouldn't be unattended at any time. So when you make a hormone, your body puts it on a bus and like drives it through the system, and then only a small amount can get off the bus and bind to the receptor. So it's really important that I know, can you even make it in the first place? And then how much of it's free? And then when it comes to cortisol, I want to know also how much is inactive. Because sometimes people are overly deactivating their cortisol to something called cortisone. So on a saliva test, they're seeing I have low cortisol, but what I don't know is, can you not produce it? Or are you deactivating it? Or both. That worst case scenario is both. They're real tired. And so by knowing this bigger picture, I can get a lot more specific. Oh, you have a communication issue from the brain down. That's why yours is low. Oh, you deactivate. let's address that. That's why it's low. And you're right, I can piece it together much easier.
So someone who is super stressed at work, eating like crap, their free cortisol would be very high?
Initially, yes.
Okay.
Initially, yes. It's the fight or flight response, right? So everything goes up. Adrenaline goes up, cortisol goes up.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, but they're still producing it, right? They're producing a lot of cortisol and liberating a lot.
Yep.
And then how does it become deactivated? What happens there?
So over time, two things can happen. Several things happen, but two. One is when you have a lot of free cortisol, we have a feedback loop. So when your body is making tons of cortisol, it's a checks and balances. It goes, oh, whoa, that's a lot of cortisol. We're done now, thank you. And so the brain tells the adrenals not to make any more. Like, whoop, slow that down. So your cortisol starts to drop. So over time, people might say, well, I used to have high cortisol, but now it's low. I'm like, over time, it will shift. The other thing is if your stress continues, if you keep burning the candle at both ends, if you keep having a lot of stress, either ongoing stress, one stress that's ongoing, or the mini stressors, I call them the and thens, which I'm pretty sure I got off the original Charlie's Angels movie with
Drew Barrymore?
Yeah, that one, because there's a scene where they're like, and then,
I remember that.
Yeah. So it's the same though in stressors when you're talking to patients and they're like, oh, Monday was just stressful, but Tuesday was better. Oh, and then Wednesday was really stressful. And then, or you're getting their history and they're like, well, I've never been well since medical school. And then I sold my house and then I moved to a city and then I started to practice. Everything's and then.
Yeah.
And what happens is the body goes, enough and thens, no more and thens. And it will start to deactivate to cortisone because it's trying to protect a certain kind of receptor called a mineralocorticoid receptor. Your mineralocorticoid receptors are where aldosterone, which is another hormone, binds to, and it helps with your saltwater balance. A lot of people know it as like, am I puffy or not? Am I retaining water or not? Cortisol can bind to those receptors. So to protect them, the body will deactivate. So it could be a checks and balances, but I will often see it on lab work when people go, I have this long history of stress. I have this long history of burning the candle at both ends. I'm like, your body is literally trying to show you on paper, slow down.
Yeah, by producing a lot of the deactivated
Yeah, it'll
form,
flip. It'll deactivate. You will make it, and it will deactivate. You will make it. It'd be like you're turning the light on, it'll turn it off. You turn the light on, it'll turn it off.
That's checks
Just
and balances. Your body's like, no, I'm taking over.
But what people do is that they drink a lot of caffeine, right? And then they'll try to take all these upper supplements, and they'll try to push, and the body's just going to push right back.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Our body's so smart, huh?
So smart. We just keep trying to ruin it.
I know. So to reiterate that, then the free cortisol is going to go down.
It is.
But that deactivated form is going to be higher. And that's how you know someone is really, really stressed.
Yep.
What an amazing test.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't this in every endocrinologist's office?
Because, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Hard to read? I don't know.
It's comprehensive. And unfortunately, for an endocrinologist, they generally have 8 to 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And you really can't go over an entire health history and a 6-page hormone test and a stool test and a full blood, thyroid panel in 8 to 10 minutes. You need a little longer than that.
You mean to tell me there's doctors out there that take more time?
I know.
Than 8 to 10 minutes?
I know.
Incredible
what a
stuff. Yeah, what a crazy concept. Oh man, look, every time I have a patient and the Dutch test is a little kooky to me, I reach out to you because I'm a VIP.
You are a VIP.
Yeah, I got VIP.
Dr. G is a VIP.
So we go over this. So
yeah.
I feel like I become an expert from you, but I still hear your analogies and I'm like, oh yeah, duh, that's so much more clear. And so then what's the importance then of testing neurotransmitters? That's on the test, right?
We do metabolites, neurotransmitter metabolites. Yeah, so we do the dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine metabolites. So they're known as HVA and VMA. Now, they're helpful in the whole stress adrenal picture. So if you have high cortisol and your epinephrine metabolites high, kind of assume yep, you're a 10 out of 10 stressed out mess. Yeah. It's showing up right here. But the other thing it's helpful for is that it's made using that same COMT that estrogen uses. So if you have a tough time getting your water through your drain, on the Dutch test, you will see low methylation. If I also see that you have low VMA and low HVA, it points more in the direction you have an issue here. You have a gene issue. You have a SNP issue. You're not making the COMT enzyme very well. And either they've already done genetic testing and I know it, or I might say to them, to know for sure, maybe we should if you want to, we could test this. We could get some genomics done and look.
Is there a way that we as practitioners can support that COMT pathway
Lots.
then? If
You
they
want to know
have
what
genetic changes?
one of the biggest cofactors?
Do tell.
Magnesium.
Magnesium. Go figure.
I know.
Something as cheap as over-the-counter magnesium, where you get it in so many foods.
Cheap. Yep, Epsom salt baths, taking magnesium, and so many Americans, worldwide, are deficient in magnesium.
So many.
Deplete. Yeah.
And I do the other NutriVal test.
Yeah.
Just nutrient overall as like a yearly test too for people. Magnesium is always on the red.
Yeah.
It is so low for people.
And it is a huge cofactor for your estrogen detoxification, for this neurotransmitter, creating these metabolites, so many things. It does.
It's a major.
So many things, yeah.
And
magnesium is the big one.
And then there's something called 8-OHDG.
Yes.
What is that?
8-hydroxy 2-deoxyguanosine.
I did the acronym because I never get that one right.
Yeah, I better get it right working for the company.
I know.
It's a big one. It's in a lot of research, which is why we added it. It's done in urine. But what happens is when you have DNA damage, then it creates 8-OHDG and you urinate it out. It's a byproduct of DNA damage. So the more DNA damage you have, whether it's from something significant like cancer or something like toxicant exposure, chemical exposure, metal exposure, then you'll have a higher number of this 8-OHDG on testing.
Yeah.
So it's a concern for us when we see it, because I'm like, your DNA is literally screaming for help. It's literally sending out the signal flares.
Yeah.
And that's 8-OHDG. Like, help me.
Like, we can intervene with that. Yeah,
yes.
We could do it with food, with supplements, and retest that. And I've seen it go lower for people, with even breast cancer patients when they come in. Unfortunately, 8-OHDG is really high for these folks, which we would assume.
Yeah.
But you can make that intervention, retest, and bring
and
it down.
just like you, I see it because we have a number of practitioners like yourself who see a lot of oncology, and so they will run the test, 1 to see the estrogen detox, and then 2 for the 8-OHDG, some other markers too, like melatonin. But we definitely, the before and after, when the oncology patients start changing their diet, maybe getting in IV, maybe adding in antioxidants type supplements or what have you, specific for their case, we will see the number drop, which tells us the DNA is not getting damaged. It's it's a better prognosis, we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the overall picture. We talked about the nutrition part, but what about sleep? Does that play a role in hormone balance?
Everything.
In literally everything.
And literally everything.
I feel like sleep is the root cause for every single disease.
I did a lecture the other day, and on my very last slide, the very last thing I said was, if you correct sleep, you'll probably fix greater than 50% of the problems.
Isn't it incredible?
Just that one thing, if you just fix sleep.
And we're both wearing Oura rings, and I'm not sponsored by them, but we got to call them up and get them to sponsor the show, because every other person who comes here has one on.
I know, they're the greatest tracker ever. Mine yelled at me this morning because I had to get up to catch a flight to get here to LA. I didn't sleep that well, and mine was like, it told me to slow down and take a break today. And
it's so, it's informative. It's like a health hack for your life. But anyway, back to sleep, the importance of restorative sleep hormonally, is it important to get to bed consistently at the same time? Deep sleep.
Again, it's
waking
circadian
up.
rhythm. So you want consistency. Your body works on a rhythm. I heard it from somebody, and I feel terrible. I forget who it was. I would give you credit if I remembered who it was. They said adults are actually just big children. We make toddlers and babies follow a circadian rhythm. Their nap is at this time. They go to bed at 7, they get up at this time, and we're very consistent. We train, toddlers and kids, or our animals. We get a new puppy, we're trying to train them, like, all right, bedtime is this time, and and this is when you wake up, and this is when you go out. Humans, adults are the exact same. We need a consistent bedtime, just like a toddler. We need to get up at a consistent time, pretty much every night. And deep sleep, men, that's when you make your testosterone.
Yeah,
and men and women, that's when you repair.
That's when we repair.
That's when you repair. So it's in your deep sleep that you get that restorative sleep. It literally raises growth hormone. And my growth hormone analogy, it's like scrubbing bubbles. So it goes through and it cleans and repairs and, gets rid of the cells that should be killed off and, scrubbed to the side, and it makes you all shiny and pretty for the morning.
Yeah.
So if you don't wake up feeling shiny and pretty and restored and rejuvenated, then sleep is where you start.
Yeah, it's so important. And the whole bringing forward, take sleep hygiene practice and even the blue blockers, just learning what steps you can do, but shutting off at a particular time. Is there a time at night where everyone should be getting to bed?
So I've heard anything between 1 to 2 hours. So starting to wind down and getting off their screens or switching their screens to a more red background, using the blue blockers, anything from like an hour to 2 hours before bed.
An hour to 2 hours before bed.
I'd say consistently I hear, maybe it's in research, they suggest 2 hours before bed, but I'd say the majority of humans, that's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to like be off all screens and start to wind down. If I go to bed at 8 o'clock, I'm like, really?
Yeah,
like,
I know. What do I do now?
I know.
Which is, this is why I always push in like your own rituals. Like then you do a meditative practice or read or start, like that'll be your me time and alone time that's coming forward.
Yep.
But are you saying like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock is a good time for people to go to sleep?
They say so somewhere, I'll just say yes, blanketly. Somewhere between like 9:30 and 11 is ideal. There's, good research. Any amount past really midnight, it's not the same kind of sleep. It's not as restorative. You're
telling me. Listen, my thing is that I get this creative tidal wave that comes at like 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I just start
tap into the source, but
I don't know
need to go to bed.
Yeah, everyone's like quiet.
No source, no.
Yeah, I'll write music, I'll write poems, I'll draw, I'll paint, I'll do everything like at that time.
You're like a toddler who doesn't want to go to bed.
I know, but I'll get in 8 hours or 7 hours, and then you'll see on the Oura Ring, and the REM sleep is horrible.
Yeah.
Deep sleep is good, but the REM sleep is horrible.
Yeah.
So I need to take my own advice that I tell people to get to bed earlier.
Yeah. We all do. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
But I'd say, do it as much as you can. Most days of the week is what I tell people.
And then when we wake up, is it important to have the sun hitting our face or getting in touch with it?
Yes, it's my favorite thing. The cortisol awakening response. We have to support it.
Yeah.
So as soon as you wake up, when you open your eyes, your cortisol shoots up. It's not a stress response. It's a normal awakening response. It's where the parts of your brain flip from conscious, your eyes are awake, to alert. And it happens in about the first 30-ish minutes of you waking up. So for all those people who say, I don't wake up and feel very alert, or it takes me hours to feel alert, as opposed to like, in about 20 to 30 minutes, I do feel alert, actually. Yeah. That's a healthy response. It's the people who go, okay, I need 2 cups of coffee, and I have to take a shower, and I have to get moving, and then eventually on my drive to work, I feel alert.
Yeah.
You failed your cortisol awakening response. And the reason the cortisol awakening response exists is to get us up, to switch us to alert, to address our blood sugar, because we've been fasting all night long. It helps to kill off autoimmune cells that are collected in the thymus gland. It helps with just energy. It helps our mood. It does all sorts of things. And it's affected 100% by your sleep the night before and the amount of light you have in the morning. Those two things.
Two factors
so
that
when
we
people
can
are
control,
like, what supplement do I do to fix that? I'm like, sleep and sun.
Yeah, sleep and sun.
Or full spectrum light.
So do you know what I do? I get up, same clothes I've slept in. Well, I put on some pants.
I was like...
No, I don't put on some shorts. And I go to the front yard. I take off my shirt and I'm in the sun for 15 minutes.
Yep.
There you go. And I go right back in.
Yep.
This is what I've been doing the past maybe 3-4 weeks, making sure that I'm doing consistently.
Because you listen to me.
Of course I listen to you. What you tell me, I tell my patients. I got to live what I preach, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
I live in the Northwest. I live in Portland, so we don't have the sun like you have here. And so a lot of people are like, it's snowing right now where I live. How do I do this? So I tell them, go on Amazon. I have no affiliation. Start looking up full spectrum light. And read the comments and buy what might work for you. There's boxes that are portable, so you can have it right here and turn it on. There's the alarm clock that starts to brightens the room. I have several friends who swear by the alarm clock, love it, said it's their favorite thing. My best friend has a stand that goes over her laptop, so when she's working, she keeps it on all through the morning. And so, everybody wants something different. So when they're like, what do you recommend? I'm like, it depends what you need. Do you want the alarm clock? Do you want the box that you can just turn on at your desk or on your counter or your kitchen?
Yeah.
Do you want a stand? What do you want? And so
But there's some things we can do, because that was my next question. People live all over the country who don't get
I'm like,
sun
and they're really inexpensive. You can just buy the full spectrum light.
It's called a full spectrum light?
Full spectrum light,
okay.
Yep. Now, there are full spectrum light bulbs. So I tell people, if you're going to have a full spectrum light bulb in your bedside stand, Don't use it at night. Right? Because if you turn it on at night, then your body's gonna be like, wait, I thought we were going to bed.
Yeah.
It seems like the sun is out.
Yeah.
The other thing is just going outside. So even though it's not very sunny where I am, it's still gray days. Like just getting fresh air for one, and just getting that natural brightness, the natural light, even on a gray day, is really helpful.
And getting your feet on the ground.
And getting your feet on the ground.
Importance of
I
grounding.
will often, not always, depends how hard it's raining. I will get up, put my hair in a bun, and take my dog for a walk.
That's amazing.
And I notice a huge difference, even when I don't want to, even when I'm still tired, even when I'm like, oh, really, dog, can we just sleep in a little bit?
That movement is everything.
Just 10 minutes around the block, I instantly feel a million times better, and it lasts all day for me.
Yeah.
And it's really motivating, and it helps that my dog is really demanding. So
yeah, I always say the
don't have a
first.
choice.
I always say the first hour. And I seen your dog. It's a very cute dog.
Very cute.
I remember you showed me a
Hank.
picture. Hank. The first hour of waking up is sort of sets the tone for the whole day.
The whole day. And I used to hear that crap, and I'm like,
yeah.
whatever. You
Yeah.
know, I get it together. I'm pretty organized.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm type A. It's no joke.
It's no joke.
When I
Mentally,
set my
physically.
day, in the first hour of my day, when I get it right, when I get outside, walk my dog, when I work out, when I drink my lemon water, you know, when I write in my journal, like, I'm so
Everything.
much better the whole rest of the day. And I'm like,
This is why I
Fine.
talk about rituals. These are rituals, right?
Yeah.
Like we have our own rituals and they all look different. But what I'm trying to do is have people set a standard for their day.
Yep.
Okay, before we finish, I didn't even touch on this. You speak about DIM, and I wanted to,
Oh, DIM.
we almost
Yes. We almost forgot.
because there's a lot of like you can go on Instagram or any social media and there's a lot of like this push. I love DIM.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
a push for DIM saying hormone issues.
Take DIM. Yep. Take DIM.
What is the caveat here that you speak about?
Absolutely. So DIM is diindolylmethane, and so it when you eat broccoli, kale, cauliflower, mustard greens, when you chew it up, it releases I3C, indole-3-carbinol. I3C has to hit your acid in your stomach, and it breaks apart into a lot of things, one of which is DIM, diindolylmethane. What DIM does is it upregulates CYP1A1, which is the path, the road in your analogy, that increases the 2 pathway, so the less carcinogenic. It's the pathway most people want to go down. So when you eat those foods, you know, and you get it naturally, but you can take it as a supplement. Now, the hard part is CYP1A1 upregulates lots of things, not just estrogen. So if you're upregulating that, it can also accidentally upregulate bad things like polyaromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs. So if you have a lot of PAH exposure and you're taking DIM, you may be helping your estrogen, but you're actually hurting potentially your PAH addict formation, which damage DNA.
DNA, yeah.
You have to be careful. The other thing is if you're just giving DIM, it means you're just turning the water on your clawfoot bathtub higher. But if you haven't addressed the drain and you haven't addressed the sewer line, you're still going to get it back up. So a lot of women will say, I took DIM and feel great. I'm feeling so much better. And then they'll go, okay, I'm not. It worked for a while and it stopped. What went wrong? Or it worked for a while and now I'm having these other symptoms. You have to address the sewer line and the drain.
The COMT's got to work well. They got to be pooping all the time. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
And you can do it all at once. People will say, well, can I take magnesium? Can I take DIM? Can I do good like prebiotics and fiber?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally. You can do all three at once. But if money's an issue or, you know, you want to be, you want to just focus on one at a time, focus on the gut first, then work on the drain, COMT, and then work. And you might not even need DIM anymore. By the time you fix the gut and you're pooping,
Exactly.
and the inflammation's down and your microbiome, your estrobolome is happy, you may not need anything. You may not need magnesium. You might not need DIM.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And the PAHs are coming from like overcooked food, like
Polyaromatic
charred.
hydrocarbon, and that will actually upregulate your CYPs in general. So the barbecued meats, the burnt meats.
This is what I tell people: if you're eating charred meat,
if you like it well done, burnt,
exactly,
it's a problem.
Barbecue's a problem if you're having it all the
tastes so
time.
good though.
I remember those days. We have to.
Well,
make
actually,
them.
but that's true. I was gonna say it's not anything because people barbecue vegetables, but it's.
But I don't think it's the same
different,
as that.
charred.
Yeah, it's a different chard.
Yeah.
Wow, shoot, that was dense, and like we had the pleasure of like literally having you in front of us, and like this is what people get when there's like hundreds and hundreds of people listening to you. We got it intimately over here in Santa Monica and right on this microphone. So before we go, what are 3 simple interventions that people can do to ensure or practice better hormone health?
Oh, we've hit on it. So my top 2 things, I say uppers in the morning on waking, downers at night. And I mean that in a legal way. So uppers in the morning, sunshine as soon as you wake up. So if you're going to affect your cortisol awakening response, whatever you do has to be in the first 30 minutes. So let's say someone listening to you has been told by their doctor to take their supplements in the morning. What does everyone do? They get up, they shower, they get ready, they get their family out the door, they get out the door, and then they take their supplements. Still the morning. It doesn't impact your cortisol awakening response, I don't think. So I tell people, when you get up, take your supplements right away. Take them within 30 minutes. Get some sunshine, get a little bit of movement within that 30 minutes to really impact your cortisol awakening response. And then at night, you're going to do the reverse. You're going to do the darkness stuff. So lights dimmed, off your screen, using the blue light blockers. Just getting that circadian rhythm will affect your cortisol rhythm, your melatonin rhythm, and that sets all of your rhythms. So women think your reproductive rhythm, right? Women work in a cycle. If you're not sleeping and your light dark is all off, it will 100% affect how you ovulate, how you make progesterone, how you balance estrogen.
Perfect.
It's all right there.
Yeah. And your favorite food was broccoli sprouts, you said?
Well, my favorite food for hormones is broccoli sprouts.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite food for hormones, broccoli sprouts. Now, I don't have a green thumb at all, so I take broccoli sprouts as a supplement.
Yeah.
I kill sometimes cactus too, so I have to be really careful. It's not my forte. Okay, hormones are my forte.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask you about exercise really quick.
Oh yeah.
Importance for hormone balancing, over-exercising, under-exercising.
But you can mess yourself up either way, right? So if you're not exercising and you start exercising, you will probably feel better. It will be really good for your hormones. Just be careful. Don't go from not exercising to like weekend warrior, run a marathon, or like join an elite CrossFit gym. Just be careful. Now, if you are the ultimate marathoner or the elite CrossFitter and you have a lot of hormone issues, it's probably too much for you. I'm not saying stop it completely per se, but maybe cut back. Maybe add in more walking, more yoga, more lighter, less stressful, less impactful things. I tell this story a lot. I had a patient who was a chronic marathoner, God bless her. Like that's what she liked to do on weekends, is run half or full marathons, and she couldn't figure out why she couldn't get pregnant. Very healthy otherwise. Her partner, sperm, no problem, but she was an ultimate marathoner every weekend. And I was like, you are always running from the tiger, even though you enjoy it. It's a stress release for you. It's community. I get that. You can't get pregnant because of it. The minute she stopped, she was pregnant within a couple months.
Yeah. I remember that story on a podcast you said, and it's incredible. So let's pay close attention. If we're over-exercising, what our hormones look like, hook up with a naturopathic doctor or functional doctor.
Absolutely.
They can do this test for you.
And evaluate. They'll evaluate your food. They'll evaluate your exercise.
See the big picture.
Exactly. And it's sometimes hard if for her, a marathon was her thing. CrossFitters, right? Like I'm not picking on CrossFitters, but it's their thing, and it's great community. And when I come in and I'm like, look, your hormones are a mess. Your cortisol is actually really high. It's not doing you any good to go 4 or 5 days a week. Why don't we cut back? It's like devastating to them.
It really is.
And I get that. Like it's a community, but it's at the expense of their hormones. And so I'm like, well, maybe go to the gym and just walk around, stretch.
Or do like the bike. Do like the bike for a little bit.
Like just dial it down. Just tell your coach you need to be at 50% for a while.
Yoga's wonderful too. Let's start doing that for stress and those hormones relaxing. So thank you, Dr. Carrie Jones. You are a trailblazer. You lit this whole set on fire. I'm so happy that you came on. We got you from
Thanks,
Portland.
Dr. G.
How are people finding you?
Instagram. I hang out with you on Instagram. So at dr.Carrie Jones.
Okay. And do you have a website or?
All my stuff is through Dutch. So DutchTest.com. I do have a website, which is drdrcarriejones.com, but it links. There's some stuff about me on there, and then it links back to Dutch.
When are you going to write a book? That's what I need to know.
I have some really good ideas for a book.
Okay.
So I'm just give me some time.
Give me a little time.
Give me some space. Give me some time.
Ladies and gentlemen, she's going to flex on you with this book. It's coming. It's on its way.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Didn't I tell you that was going to be such a good show? I'm so happy that we got to talk about hormones. I purposely waited so we can talk about hormones. Dr. Jones was amazing. Stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to be on fire too. Rate, review, subscribe. Thank you so much for supporting Heal Thyself. I love you all.